If the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold, please consider contributing by becoming an ACA member or visiting our product page at evolvefish.com under the Partner tab. Thank you. Culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold. Please consider contributing.
Hello? Welcome to the Atheist Experience in the lovely, spacious Free Thought Library again, where we don't have a monitor, so we don't know what we look like or whether there's an intro playing or what. But I just heard my voice echo 3 times in my ears.
Welcome to the
Experience.
This will be good.
Yes. So, people have been complaining on the blog for a few weeks about how there are technical issues, and get used to it. There are going to be technical issues because we just set up a whole goddamn TV studio from scratch in like a week, and we are still working on it. But we are the Atheist Experience, and with me today, I'm Russell Glasser. This is Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
How are you doing this week, Don?
Just fine. It's nice and toasty in here, too.
Okay. And today is Sunday, September 6th, 2015. We are a live public access... We are not a public access TV show.
Oh, we're live,
for now. We are an internet show.
There you
go. We're an internet show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are live streaming simultaneously, on Ustream and YouTube, and the official Atheist Experience website where you can find all the stuff you could possibly want to know is www.atheist-experience.com, and you can also provide feedback on how terrible you think the show is lately on freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you do enjoy the show, please check out our related podcast, The Nonprofits, which also records live but without video from this very studio. And it currently airs on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. You can find links at the Atheist Experience website, and the next Nonprofits will be recorded on September 16th, if I did my math correctly. So, lately... we've been in a bit of a flux about where we're meeting for dinner, which is maybe a problem for people who aren't going to call the show but are going to just show up at whatever the last place they heard was. But this week, take this down. Hopefully this is also appearing on the screen. We are showing up at Threadgill's, but it is the north location, not the downtown location that we used to go to. Threadgill's is at 6416 North Lamar. And I'll say that one more time, 6416 North Lamar here in Austin, and we will be arriving after the show by 6 p.m. So, a couple of special announcements that you guys should keep in mind. The Bat Cruise is happening. Woo! It is a yearly event where you can get on a boat with a bunch of atheists and watch some bats fly out from under a bridge at sunset, and also hear Hina Data Boy give a lecture the afternoon before. That is happening September 26th. You do require a ticket to get in. You can purchase your tickets now, and now that we're not in a public access studio, I can say it again. Purchase a ticket with money. You should do that.
You can do that via the Atheist Community of Austin website.
Yes.
And this is probably the one event the ACA really encourages out-of-town visitors, and we do get a lot of folks from out of town.
We always encourage out-of-town visitors to swing by the studio anytime, but
that's an especially good one. It's a good place to come down and be social with a lot of other Texans and folks from around the country and Canada even.
There's stuff going on all weekend. On Saturday, you can hear an awesome lecture from ex-Muslim Hinadata Boy. And in the evening, in the evening, we're all going to get on that boat, and that's going to be a blast, like it always is.
Low-key fun. Bring some snacks if you want.
Yep. Yeah. And then Sunday, we're doing a show, probably in this studio, as usual. Definitely in this studio. And, this room out there is a little bit small, so I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of people standing up.
Yeah.
But odds are that Hina is actually going to be co-hosting the show that day, maybe. So September 26th.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars.
Coming up.
If you're already here in Austin and you don't have anything else you're doing this Wednesday, you can come by the University of Texas at Austin and watch me give a live talk on skepticism. So that's on the show blog, freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, room number and everything. All right. So this is my second show in this studio, and your first.
That's right.
So for people who are still getting up to speed, you now Skype into the show. I believe the Skype handle is The Atheist Experience, all one word, and somebody will screen your call, or you send a text message to The Atheist Experience, and if we are going to take you on the air, then we will say your name, and then like 30 seconds later, they will have called you up.
Right.
So we're going to be doing some filler
today. Don't call
today.
us, we'll call you.
Right. I'm going to say they ought to queue up Andrew in Ormond Beach now, and then Don can fill the time while they do that by starting your segment.
Okay.
So hang in there, Andrew. We'll get to you in a bit.
Okay. So, I've been doing a long series of failure shows, and today I wanted to talk about conflict of interest because it seems especially important in the news today. I have hit this topic, believe it or not, back in 2006. So this is not exactly a repeat, but I did talk about conflict of interest way back then in episode 441 if you want to go look it up.
We call it a greatest hits album.
Yeah, right. So conflict of interest is a basic ethics idea that if you have a situation where a person or organization is involved in multiple interests, one of which could possibly corrupt the motivation of the individual or the organization, and so these other interests can be getting in the way and these sorts of things. And I think most people instinctively understand this. This is kind of an adult thing that most people understand. And even the Bible seems to have something about it. In Matthew 6:24 and Luke 16:13, they have the same verse. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. And then it adds, you cannot serve both God and money. But we are going to talk about conflict of interest with God. And the trouble is that serving God and being a servant to God causes a conflict of interest with all sorts of other things. And I wanted to talk, and what I'll do is we'll talk about different parts of it as we're filling up holes here. Public office, civil society, and families. And serving God seems to be something that Christians and other believers want to do to make their God happy so they get the goodies from God or whatever. It is generally selfish interests at the end of the day. And today in public office, we've had Kim Davis, the Kentucky County Clerk, as a prime example of the conflict of interest. She has her religious beliefs, and she has put them ahead of her job as an elected official. And U.S. has a secular government, and with church-state separations as mandated by the First Amendment. And so using your office to serve God is illegal, and it inhibits your ability to be a good public servant. And I think that she's a prime example of that, although I have other examples as well. Maybe this is a good time to jump to our caller if he's ready.
Andrew, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
What's up?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, kind of an easy one to start with. I know you probably get a lot of questions like, what's the worst, religious argument you've ever heard? But I was wondering, what's the worst argument for atheism or against religion that you've ever heard?
I saw your question in advance, and I thought of a couple.
Okay,
Yeah.
you go.
The worst argument for your own side, yeah.
Yeah, one mistake
There are so many.
that I have made a lot myself that I regret is casting too wide a net with lumping theists together, or lumping Christians together. There really is a lot of diversity within Christianity, and you would think that if you've got a God that is giving you an absolute morality and it's unchanging and well communicated from the God to His creation, that there shouldn't be much diversity. But there actually is, and so it's very easy for Christians to say, well, that doesn't apply to me, or you just don't understand, I'm going to ignore you. And that would be kind of my first one, and I've got another one if you want to go, Russell.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this is the worst argument, but I'm an atheist because I do not think there's any reason to believe that a God exists. And so I take kind of a dim view on arguments from the consequences, like I don't like for instance, the argument from evil is interesting, and even if there was an evil God, that wouldn't prove that no God exists. It just would prove that people haven't got a handle on what God is like. So for instance, saying I don't think, I'm an atheist because I think that God does terrible things in the Bible, that's not an argument for being an atheist. It's just an argument for opposing the harmful narratives that are in the Bible, given that we don't think God exists already. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So you don't think that that's a strong argument, or that's a bad argument to be making, the consequences? Or it doesn't appeal to you?
I don't think it's a strong argument for no God existing. I think it's a strong argument against religious encroachment in public life. But I don't think it is a reason in itself to be an atheist.
Okay. And I guess I'd throw one more out there, and that is a mistake that atheists often make is allowing themselves to be put in a situation where they have to, the burden of proof is shifted to them.
Sure.
And there's a lot of subtle ways to get into that trap, and it's very easy to kind of ending up having to play defense there when you don't have to.
Right. A lot of times people will email us and say, "Hey, how come you don't say there is absolute proof of God not existing?" I have absolute proof of God not existing, and here's my awesome proof. And then they basically are claiming they have solved a problem which has basically gone unanswered in philosophy for thousands of years. and usually it's really easy to spot the flaw in this. And it's like, you can't prove something doesn't exist unless, it has a very specific definition that is internally contradictory. But there are so many different definitions of gods and so many different religions that conflict with each other. You can't categorically exclude them all. You can just say there is no good reason to believe in any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else you got for us?
I mean, that's good enough.
Yeah, that's good enough. It's an interesting question.
All right.
Yeah, thanks. Thank y'all.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling.
And we'll get to Justin in Ontario in a bit.
Okay.
Okay.
So another place where we have conflicts of interest in the elected officials or in public servants is a big one is military chaplains, and military chaplains by and large are ordained in the religion that they're chaplains for. In fact, so there's this weird catch-22 where they have to be ordained in this, and in order to be ordained, they have to say, "Well, I'm going to serve God, or I'm going to toe the line of this particular religion." But then they get in this situation where, then they become a chaplain for the rest of the military, and someone who is advancing a particular agenda has to. They end up being unsuitable for serving the military at large, and so there's clearly a problem here. These folks clearly have a strong conflict of interest. So, do we have somebody on the line?
Okay. Are you cutting this short so we can talk to people?
Yes.
Or are you okay?
I'm gonna let's bounce back and forth.
All right. Okay, Justin. Sorry to ignore you. Go on.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify something first, because I hear atheist a lot in a lot of different terms, and it's a dichotomy, right? It's either theism or atheism. So it's either there are gods or there are no gods. Like I hear you guys say a lot that atheism is a disbelief in God due to a lack of proof, but that would be the level of belief, like Gnosticism versus agnosticism. So if you're a Gnostic atheist, then you know there are no gods because the claim is there are no gods, right? But if you're an agnostic atheist, then nobody can really know.
Well,
like
it's believing in God or not believing in God is the distinction. I mean, most atheists do not claim absolute proof of this thing, but as Matt would say, absolute proof is kind of a meaningless concept. There is no such thing outside of abstract stuff like math. Science is always, scientific facts about the world are always treated as tentative, but I know a lot of theists I know a lot of atheists who would basically say, I know there is no God as well as I can know just about any fact, even if that's still subject to change.
I agree totally. Like I'd say about 90% of actual atheists are agnostic atheists, but I just mean the definition of atheism itself is there are no gods, as opposed to not believing in gods due to lack of evidence, right?
Gods.
Yeah, I mean you can find that definition in dictionaries. Well,
it's a dichotomy, right? There either are gods or there aren't gods, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you have absolute knowledge of something. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm just because it's not even an ideology. It's just a single point on a single stance, right? It's either there are or there not.
The point is you either believe it or you
Gnosticism
don't.
And agnosticism, right?
Yeah, so we focus on belief, and even on our website we'll say, this is how we're defining atheism, and yes, there are other definitions out there, but that's the one we sort of use is that we're a non-believing. And so, if folks have a good reason to believe, then we'd like to hear it. We'd like to, mull it over. But I've been doing this show quite a long time, and I haven't heard a good argument, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I've heard all the crazy ones too. Which brings me to my actual question is about the commandments and stuff like that, because I know the 10 Commandments were supposedly put out by Moses, but wasn't it really just arbitrarily taken from the original 613? And I asked people about this, and they say certain commandments aren't supposed to be followed anymore. They're supposed to be only for Israelis and stuff like that. I'm just wondering, what is your most concrete argument against, like, why they should be still using at least certain commandments more than the 10?
Well, they shouldn't use any of them because the Bible isn't, there.
Yeah, I don't know
there is
if I
probably no God. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying, like, if I was to argue with creationists or something like that to prove my point about the commandments.
I don't like to bother telling people what they should believe about specific religions because religion, no matter what, is incredibly nebulous, and it's a combination of stuff you read in a book and your own personal spin on that. adherence.com says that there are like 30,000 different sects of Christianity, but really I think there are as many individual sects of any religion as there are people that follow it.
And there are different versions of the Ten Commandments. The Protestants and Catholics have different versions. There are different versions even within a given Bible. And this whole 613, I think, is a kind of a made up number. I think there's
no. I think there is something in there that says 613.
It was my understanding that there's a whole bunch of them, and you can quibble about how you count them.
Right. Yeah. Because they're not numbered very well.
And they
even
chose
the canonical 10.
And they chose 613 because of the number of bones in the body, or some goofy numerology thing, and not so much. But whatever. I mean, there's all these different commandments and things, and different folks will different believers will have different weights for different edicts.
Yeah, I mean, if it's up to me about something to argue about the Ten Commandments, I pick a specific thing in the Ten Commandments and argue it on its merits. I mean, I will say, okay, thou shalt not kill is actually a pretty good principle. It wasn't original to the ancient Jews. There are lots of things that tell you not to kill in, like, ancient Chinese law that predates it, or the Code of Hammurabi gives specific punishment for killing other people.
Right.
But
so the good ones aren't unique.
Yeah.
And there's lots of bad ones.
Yeah, and then and the bad ones, like, for instance, I don't want to come out in support of adultery or anything, but adultery is grounds for divorce in modern law, but it's not grounds for going to jail or anything. Right. So we don't really take adultery as a thou shalt not. It's just an unfortunate act that affects two people who have been lying to each other.
Right.
But we certainly don't base any laws off of that, pretty much. Right. And then there are things like, thou shalt not have any other gods before me, which is totally unconstitutional if you take it from a legal perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Or these crazy food laws like not cooking a kid goat in its mother's milk. It's like, okay, well, why do we really care about that so much?
Right. So, I mean, when I argue the Bible, I tend not to dive too much into, the text means this thing or the text means that thing. Basically, I've got 2 points. One, I have no reason to believe in God or that anything in this book is accurate. And two, this thing in the book is dumb.
Fair enough. My last question was kind of rebucked already because you said you don't really like the evil argument. I was just talking about because they have certain claims of what the deity is in the Bible, like he's omniscient, he's omnibenevolent, he's omnipotent and stuff like that. I just don't see how omniscience and omnibenevolence would be contradictory if there is evil, wouldn't it? Because if he knew everything from beginning to end and there's still evil, then he wouldn't be omnibenevolent, would he?
Well, you need all three, I think, for the failure to occur, right? He could be omnibenevolent and completely passive because he can't do anything, right? He's just a victim. But if you add omnipotent to that, then you have the classic problem of evil, which is pretty old argument. Thank goodness.
Yeah, but the way you phrase the contradiction is almost exactly, literally, the way that the problem of evil is defined. So if you want to read more about that, I recommend going to either the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, I think it is,
right.
and look up problem of evil there. Or, better yet, shameless plug, go to ironchariots.org, which is a wiki that was started by me and Matt and a follower of the show, and is an excellent source of rebuttals to Christian arguments of all kinds.
I actually love that site. I send a lot of creationists and Christians there and talk origins.
Well, thank you.
But anyways, thanks a lot for taking my call.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks for calling.
You have a good day.
All right. Coming up later, and please be patient because we're not putting you on just yet, but Kris in Pennsylvania will be coming up in a bit. Go on, Don.
Go on. Okay. There is a conflict of interest between being Christian and being even a citizen in a civil society. So God commands killing witches, fortune tellers, those that don't listen to priests, those that curse their parents, fornicators, adulterers, idolaters, non-virgins on their wedding nights, blasphemers, and those who work on the Sabbath, all people of Babylon, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, Jebusites, and Jews, and all sorts of other folks. Killing disobedient children is just fine. So slavery is okay. Women must bury their rapists. There's all sorts of conflicts here, all sorts of problems, and these things are incompatible with a civil society. You're supposed to give away all your money, and I don't know anybody that does that. And so how can you follow all these edicts and be in a society where we're kind of take care of each other and we look out for each other and we don't go stomping all the time? So that's a good question. Mm-hmm. Should I go on a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Another conflict is with family and God, and in Genesis 2:22, God orders Abraham to sacrifice his son to God as a burnt offering. And the proper answer to that is, fuck you. That's the only answer. But Abraham is exalted for doing this, for fearing God. And this is the foundational myth of all the Abrahamic religions. In Matthew 10:34 through 36.
I just want to say, for many years, I have been asking people who think that the Bible is the ultimate source of morality, would you kill your kid if you sincerely believed that the voice of God was talking to you? And not very many people are willing to give an unqualified yes, because most people recognize that this is a terrible idea, and you should be super skeptical of, any voices in your head that are telling you to kill anybody.
Absolutely. That's like mental illness time. That's like Andrea Yates was a great Christian, but we don't want to go there. She's the one that drowned her kids in the bathtub so that they wouldn't reach the age of reason.
And she and many other Christians, whether you believe they're real Christians or not, I mean, they were, lots. There are numerous stories over the years of people actually killing their kids out of some misguided religious belief, and you will always see Christians jump in immediately and say, oh, she was probably mentally ill and that explains it, and she wasn't a true Christian, or she would know. But I've never heard one person come forward and say, hey, Andrea Yates was really acting biblically, and maybe have you considered the possibility that she really was hearing from the real God?
Yeah.
Because God said that sort of thing.
Right.
And if it's a good thing for Abraham to be willing to go through with it, why not Andrea Yates?
Absolutely. Or the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Christian Scientists who may refuse to take their kids in to have medical procedures done that would save their lives, and we've lost a lot of children that way. It's pretty sad. Sad. You wanna go to call?
Okay. That was Kris in Pennsylvania. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Kris. Are you Kris?
Hi.
Okay.
Well, before I ask my question, I did say that to my mom. If God told you to kill us, would you? And it's amazing how people rationalize that. But
enter the spin zone.
Please tell me she said, "Of course not, dear."
Of course not. She said, "I'm just not that good of a Christian."
Oh, gee.
Wow. So
she was like a fault in herself, though.
Yeah, if she was better at being a Christian, then she would be willing to kill you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What a sad conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually,
how many years until you get to move out? Just
I'm on my own now.
Okay.
I'm 25.
Good for you.
All right, good.
But I actually recently became an atheist, and I'm from a very fundamental Pentecostal. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Faith.
They do speaking in tongues, right?
Yes. Uh-huh. and we were having a discussion about LGBTQ rights, and my family was like, "Don't you read the Bible, Kristen?" And I was like, "Yeah," and that's pretty much why I feel the way I feel. And
That's common.
they were like, "Do you believe in God?" And I was like, "No." And then after
So
that,
all hell broke loose, I imagine.
yes, my mom actually threw up.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
She was
Okay.
crying so much. It was
Wow.
quite
Yeah.
a deal. They've made me speak to religious leaders about my beliefs now. I have to pick apart the Bible.
Hang on.
And
A minute
everything that I
ago,
don't
you
agree
said
with
you
it.
were.
And then they tell me that I'm cherry picking all the bad stuff, and I'm like, well, pretty much you're doing the same thing with the good stuff. I'm just kind of being critical to a book.
Wait, let me ask you something. You said you were living on your own, but then you just said they made you see.
Okay,
a
well,
priest.
when I say they made me, I
Okay.
mean I'm being
Hounded, huh?
submissive to them to
Okay.
not
Because
have
you still love them.
make my life easier.
Okay. Are you financially dependent on your parents in any way?
No.
Oh, good. That makes it easier.
Yeah.
No, I love my family, and I don't want to break all ties with them, so I kind of just do it.
Yeah.
But I'm getting kind of fed up with it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm, tough.
I think it's common when, especially with relatively recent atheists, that's a pretty important new part of your identity, right? It's something that's new and interesting and a big part of who you are now. And I think it's common for folks in that position to be pretty outspoken about their what they believe and these sorts of things, and that's all fine. But if you want to keep your relationship with your family working, sometimes you need to focus on the things that you do agree on, and maybe agree to disagree on a few things, and step away from the battle with your family. I mean, having a battle online is one thing. Having it in a forum like this is one thing. But having it with your family members, things can get pretty ugly. And I don't know. Maybe you can find a place where you're civil with each other and focused on the things that you care about, like kids and family or being together, these sorts of things, traditions that you have with your family, these sorts of things, and maybe not make religion the centerpiece. And it takes two to tango. You may not have any control over that. I understand. And they may be wanting to bring you back into the fold, and that's a kind of uncomfortable position to be in.
No, I see what you're saying. It's in the religion that I am. Honestly, religion is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
To your family?
Everything.
Uh-huh.
Religion can be brought into everything. I mean, my sister got married yesterday, and my mom's allergies were better, and obviously it was God. And
Yeah.
I'm just glad that he had time to, save her from her allergies, but not, dying children, but whatever.
Right. Well, when you were a kid, your parents had a certain amount of authority over you. But now that you're out living on your own and you're financially independent, the tables have really turned in some ways, because you are an independent person and
you can walk away.
Yeah, you have control over what you are willing to put up with in your own life. So if I were to say something to your parents, and bear in mind that I have very wonderful atheist parents, so I am not speaking from experience, but I've observed a lot of people who have dealt with religious parents in their lives, and one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that time wounds all heals. Excuse me, turn that around.
Time heals all wounds.
Time heals all wounds.
Yeah, if you can keep the communication channels open, that's going to be a big thing in the long run.
Right, but until that happens, being a decent poker player and being willing to make a stance and stick to it in the face of your parents saying, "Oh, well, you're going to ruin your relationship with us." Bear in mind that in most cases, your parents will probably want a relationship with you still. And that gives you a lot of power if you are willing to walk away from the table, because you are going, you can say to them something like, "Look, Mom, I really love you and I always want a relationship with you, but our interaction lately has been really stressful because you want me to change my religious beliefs, and that is just not going to happen. And so the fact that we constantly argue over this one issue is hurting our relationship. So you're either going to agree to stop badgering me on this every time we talk, or I'm going to talk to you a lot less."
Yeah.
And it may wind up that you wind up talking to your parents a lot less for, let's say, a year or two.
Well, I think you're making an assumption that she's sort of in the corner. Maybe before that, maybe you could set boundaries and say,
right.
this is how we want to have an interaction. Right?
Yeah, the first thing you say is, "Mom, stop doing that, and here's why."
Yeah.
And don't engage with the religious arguments. If she tries to give you another canned argument about why God really exists, just say, "Yeah, okay, I understand that that's what you believe," and then get back to your insistence that you be treated with respect, because you deserve to be treated with respect.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if this is helpful.
No, it is. I wanted to get somebody else's. I don't really have, I live in country Pennsylvania. Everybody's Christian here.
Well, having a support system is helpful, and even online, getting involved in an online community, or it's very common to find meetups in your area, and it's not very hard to start one if there's really nothing around, and making some friends that way, and having a support system is super helpful.
Also, I'm going to say this because I've been at a lot of conventions in the last couple of years, and they're so much fun. And if
they're a real
convention,
shot in the arm, yeah.
If a convention happens to show up within, let's say, 100 miles of you, or however far you're willing to travel, go drive to that thing.
Go do it. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a ton of them.
There are, yeah. There's more and more, and they're popping up all over the country. This year I've been to Missouri and California, and there's a lot of stuff happening all over the place.
And you'll make friends that way. Anyway, so those are some things we recommend for you. We wish you luck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Next, in a bit, is going to be David in Copenhagen, Denmark. Just hang on while Don
let me
talks
wrap
some more
up
about
here.
conflicts of interest.
Yeah, so getting back to the family and God thing, you can even look in the Bible and look at Matthew 10:34 and Jesus says he intends to stir family discord, and that's one of the things that he does pretty well, I think. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father and his daughter, and against her mother, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. In Luke 18, Jesus gives a reward for abandoning your family and following him. You're going to have to do that in order to have an everlasting life. So it's not just the Old Testament; it's the New Testament. And so I wanted to kind of wrap up here. The Christian religion creates all sorts of conflicts of interest. If you truly want to serve your God, you cannot participate in civil society at any level. You can't be a public servant. You can't be a human being, really. Can't be a good family member. And these things are incompatible. And if you are just wanting to get the rewards of heaven or perpetual orgasm or whatever you think you're going to get,
who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that? You're not really a Christian if you just want to have that reward and not do this whole thing right. So either way, Christianity is hopelessly broken. Either you serve God and you're completely dysfunctional, or you don't serve God and you're just faking it. And that's a failure.
All right.
So let's take another call.
Thanks, Don.
Sure.
Hello, David.
Long-time viewer, first-time caller.
Okay.
Currently, I live in Austria, Vienna, actually. But I'm born and raised in Copenhagen, Denmark, which is in Scandinavia, of course, and it's a very secular society.
Those are both pretty secular countries, as I understand it.
Yeah, I was actually... from grade 1 to grade 9, I was attending a Catholic school in Copenhagen, a private school. But I didn't actually feel the Catholic part that much. You know, we have one nun who's like 70 years old, and they also changed the Catholic education to like general religious education.
So what you're saying is that Denmark is so secular that even the Catholic schools don't really seem Catholic.
No, I hear this a surprising amount that the Catholic schools aren't so much about indoctrination anymore. I don't know that it's universally true, but I've heard this sort of thing before. So I hope you got a good education.
I certainly did. It was a private school, and they're usually a bit above average in Denmark. But the public schools are also very good, of course. But it is it's so much about information that they want to inform and educate the kids instead of indoctrinate them, which is in great opposition to newer Muslim schools, for example, that just try to reach the requirements of education, but doing as much indoctrination as they possibly can without interfering with the law and, just keep operating. But let's see. Yeah, I just have so many subjects I wanted to talk about over these years. One of them was an angle on the logic behind the opposition of same-sex marriage within religion.
Okay.
That usually human beings are opposed to disease because it's bad for us. So my reason behind the logic for the religion's opposition to same-sex marriage is that they see it as a disease because it's inherently bad for the population.
Just to make it clear here, you are playing devil's advocate for this point of view, right? You're not really proposing that homosexuality is a disease.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm playing devil's advocate, of course.
Just checking, because you'd be surprised at what kind of callers we get.
I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of the religious people to understand what I perceive to be stupid arguments.
Okay.
But they must have some kind of logic behind it, because they're not inherently evil.
Sure.
Yeah, and I've struggled with this question a fair bit, and I think that that at a very fundamental level, the religion wants to perpetuate itself. You can think of it as a meme, or you can think of it as an institution whose goal is to be there 200 years from now. And they have hit upon this wonderful way of doing that, which is manufacturing the young and indoctrinating them and bringing them back into the fold. And I think that anything that deviates from that sort of mindset is considered a threat to the religion, because if you're not, making new kids and bringing them into the religion, then you are not part. You're outside the scope of that. And I think there's another thing too, especially in the United States, and that is that back in the 70s, there was a bit of a kind of a moral panic about gay people and whether they were going to get the kids, and this whole pedophilia mythology came up, and I think it became profitable for religions to vilify gays in order to scare their flock and get more money out of them. And I think there really is a kind of a profit motive, and I think that now that same-sex marriage has become legal in the United States, and gay people are pretty much accepted by most of the populace. This whole fear thing has lost a lot of its teeth, and I think that scares a lot of religious leaders because they don't have as much power and much access to money as they used to by scaring people.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that Christian moral systems are very much based on authoritarianism. Mm-hmm. They are, this thing is bad because I said so. And to speak to your point that gay is a disease to them, all sin is a disease to them in some way or another. It is something where they feel like, well, God has spoken and his absolute word prescribes what right and wrong behavior is defined to be. And so if you are doing things against God, you must be sick. But, of course, all humans are sick. I'm wearing my Christian hat right now. All Christians are sick because of original sin that was started in the Garden of Eden. And so there's no way for you to be perfect and get over your sinfulness. You can only be forgiven through the grace of Jesus Christ. Amen, brothers. So...
Well, I think inherently that people are good. So they try to reason behind some of the immoral things in the Bible to put it like a positive spin or find a hidden reason behind it that can be interpreted as good. For example, when I say they think homosexuality is a disease, it's because of the logic steps you take that, well, two homosexuals can't reprocreate, that's bad for population, it must be seen as kind of a disease, and that's how they can kind of put the logic behind it. But then
although I think also that Christians talking about reproduction or whatever practical reasons they might make up for opposing homosexuality, that is all just window dressing. In the end, it really boils down to because I said so. And then they come up with the reasons like, well, homosexuals can't have kids later and ignore the fact that, like, for instance, that would mean that infertile couples need to get divorced.
Yeah, and their arguments are shut down by science because we know that it's not inherited in the genes by your parents. So it's not like if you inseminate a lesbian couple, they will get a homosexual child. So
yeah, but also that doesn't matter. A lot of straight couples don't want kids and do everything they can to prevent it. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
This kind of segues into another question I had about the fluidity of moral in a modern society versus the illusion of a steadfast morality in religion. Because I have this feeling that people want to be part of something like an anchor in their life, and religion, even though they have 1,000 different kinds of anchors and 1,000 different kinds of religion, they want to be part of something. And once you break free from this and become a secularist or humanist or a free thinker, it's very hard to find somewhere else to find that anchor, something to hold on to, a kind of a framework of life that all religions offer.
Well, I think the social structure and the sense of community that religions promulgate is admirable. It's something that people need. It's something that you want to have fellowship, you want to have friendship, you want to have people who are going to look out for you when you're sick, these sorts of things, and everybody wants that. And I think that the free-thinking community, atheist community, hasn't done as good a job in that area as the religious groups have. And you know, we've got a ways to go. But I think we can get there, and I think we can adopt within our own communities some of the best practices, if you will, that are secular practices of taking care of each other and you know, having community building, and I think that we could recoup some of that.
Well, I think one of the bigger differences between the religious groups and the secular groups is that the secular groups celebrate humanity and each other, while the religious groups kind of come together to celebrate a higher deity.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they
at best they do
worship the fake thing, and we're worshiping each other. And I think you can see that there was a couple of days there was a survey showing that the 5 richest Islamic nations in the Middle East refused to take any refugees. You're seeing the refugees from Syria flooding into Europe, and it's all the secular humanists that are standing in line to giving them food and shelter and help and helping their fellow humans. And you see the 99% Islamic countries, they refuse to help at all. It's really disheartening to see, and I think it's a great example to see that the religions aren't just all these, help your fellow neighbor and all that shit.
Although
it's the humanists that are doing all the legwork.
Yeah, although a fair number of people in the secular world also are fairly anti-immigrant and say that, by no means should we let these people come into their country. And I think that is kind of a disappointment. But anyway, we've got to move on. We're down to 10 minutes in the show. Thank you for your call, David.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
We're going to go to Fabio in Buenos Aires next in a moment.
Now, you had something that you wanted to chat about.
I mean, I have a couple things. We were talking about Kim Davis earlier, and...
this is this county clerk in Kentucky, right?
Right.
Yeah. Just to give folks context.
To make sure everybody's up to speed, Kim, the Supreme Court recently upheld the idea that gay marriage should be legal in every state, and so it is officially legal. And due to an earlier amendment of the Constitution, if it's legal in the United States at large, then you can't outlaw it in any specific state. But this one clerk has has basically stood up and said, I refuse to issue marriage licenses to gay people. It's against my moral principles. And she was ordered to do her job. And she said, no, I'm going to keep coming to work and refusing to give people marriage licenses because it's all about me. And then she got put in jail. And I've heard a lot of people...
She got put in jail at the end of a number of legal challenges with her losing. Right.
I mean, basically openly defying the Supreme Court. I've heard a lot of people saying that our legal system isn't fair and so forth. But another thing that I've heard about her pretty frequently come up is that she has been married 4 times. 2 of those marriages were to the same person. I don't really care that much. Yeah. I mean, except to the extent that it demonstrates hypocrisy because divorce is outlawed just as much as gay marriage. I don't like to drag people's personal lives into an argument of law because it's ad hominem. But one thing that has been brought up a few times in conjunction with this is the idea that, she only converted to Christianity 4 years ago. And I read about this morning. I didn't even know that people were making this argument, but I was reading a Dan Savage column this morning, and if you want to look that up, it's on thestranger.com, and the title is The Federalist, Baptists Aren't Christians. So what they're saying is, it doesn't matter that she was married 4 times. She just converted to Christianity less than 4 years ago. And so none of those divorces were made while she was a Christian. But as Dan Savage points out, the definition of a Christian is very fluid based on the person who happens to be speaking at the time. And when she said that she converted to Christianity 4 years ago, what she really meant, apparently, was that she converted from baptism. She was a Baptist, and now she's an apostolic Christian. And as you probably know... Every sect of Christianity says that every other sect of Christianity is not true Christians, and that's the basis for saying she converted to Christianity.
Well, it's worse than that. I mean, if you're going to put your religious beliefs ahead of your job, you can make up anything you want, and it can be any bullshit, crazy idea that you have in your head.
Right.
And who cares if it's Christian? It's whatever crazy belief she has. Maybe we could have an atheist, go and be a county tax clerk and say, oh, well, according to my religious beliefs, we got to tax churches. And
Yes.
I'm sure that a lot of religious groups won't be supporting that, even though they're supposedly for religious freedom.
Yeah. So, in the many, many Facebook arguments that I'm sure you were all having, should somebody bring up the talking point that she just converted to Christianity, I think the best response right now is, really? Baptists aren't Christians?
Yeah, this is digging through the trash of her life, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, in general, we're not supporting arguing ad hominem. It's dumb that we're letting this one county clerk have so much power, and now we're not. So
yep.
it's all good.
Thank goodness for church-state separation. That's something I hope we can all agree on, maybe, except for maybe her.
Okay, so Fabio is on the line, and we're getting close to the end, but I'm not really obligated to respect the TV studio's timetable, so I'm going to take all three of these calls as part of the official show, but I'm going to try to keep them short, okay? Are you cool with that, Don?
That sounds wonderful. Let's do it.
All right. Fabio.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, guys?
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear us?
Hello, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. How are you?
Well, I'm glad you guys decided to take my call because I've been trying forever to get on the show, and Matt from Oslo seemed to get on very easily. So I would probably
Matt from Oslo hasn't been on for years already.
Okay, so first I'll try to keep it brief so you guys can get to everyone. So first, thanks for taking my call, and I wanted to ask you guys basically in a question how to deal with people who are religious and are struggling, having issues with their lives that are mostly caused by the religion. For instance, I have a very good friend who was very different politics but mostly the same values. And it's interesting to know how people can get along even when they come at those things from very different places. And she was Orthodox Christian, and her family basically fled from communist Russia because they were Christians, and something that informs your culture, your identity very strongly. It's kind of like being a concentration camp survivor. And every once in a while she would be, go through a really rough time because she loved science. She was a very skeptical person, but she felt like going against her faith and bringing some matters to her family would drive her apart from them or basically ruin her relationship with people she cared about. And I felt, it was kind of a no man's land. What should I tell her? That she should discount her religion or, try to go for a moderate version, even though I think, both the moderate version and the hardcore version are lies. It felt like, I was being a hypocrite. And, it's weird when people ask for advice or need advice, when are we as atheists, when it's all right to proselytize, basically?
Well, you raise an interesting point, and I think a lot of people get along, or go along to get along, as the phrase goes, in order to smooth over these sorts of issues. And I imagine there are a lot more atheists than we are even aware of that are people who are sort of stuck in these sorts of situations. And it may be that you can't fix that particular situation. It may be that there's nothing you can do except maybe make her aware of the options that are available to her and try to be a friend. I think that for folks who can be out and can be outspoken and can be visible, that they should do so, because gosh, look at what that very thing has done for the gay community here in the United States. The visibility and acceptance has just been a huge change in the last 20 years or so. And I think that atheists can do that too if they are able and willing to be out and open and make the world a safe place for folks like her. So that would be my suggestion, is maybe you can't fix her situation, but you can help a lot of other folks in a similar situation.
Okay, yeah, and it partly could be a hang-up of mine because, I'm Brazilian, I'm living in Argentina now, and I had to attend Catholic school. And it's sort of
Seems to be a
lifelong
today.
aversion to, proselytizing and trying to reach your life is hard, so do what I do, adopt my beliefs and you'll be all right. But just to, wrap up that tale and see, when I first started calling you guys, it was to ask this question. But basically it took so long that she sort of found her own answers, and she's an atheist now as well. So she found her way all right.
Okay. Well,
it's
problem solved.
Problem solved.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way, which is why I felt I still should ask.
Yeah.
So basically, thanks a lot, guys, for taking my calls, and have a good one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Chris in Cleveland, Tennessee is going to be coming up next in a minute.
Here's another conflict of interest, and you and I were part of this. We had our Texas State School Board here, loaded with creationists and all sorts of religious whack-jobbery, and they were working overtime to put that stuff into textbooks.
That's right.
And Russell and I and a number of other folks here in Austin participated in hearings that...
Man, that was 12 years ago already.
Maybe did something to improve things. I think we won some battles and lost a few, but it's an ongoing thing where, religious people, when they get into public office, they want to use that to advance their religion.
Yeah. Catholic schools seem to be coming up a lot in today's show, so I just thought I'd throw out this little anecdote that Mark out in the audience wanted to hold up a sign about that said that I believe it said an atheist donated $15 million to a Catholic school,
wow.
I guess, in New York. So I guess anything's possible as far as Catholic schools teaching relatively secular curricula. But personally, I'd put my money somewhere else if I had $15 million.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe he's got $100 million and he's got plenty to go around.
Yeah. Now, I hear some of you people, and we'll get to you, Chris, in a minute, but I can practically hear through my screen all the people gnashing their teeth in frustration that there were no Christian callers today. It's an ongoing issue. We do prioritize Christian callers, and so if we didn't put any on the line, it's not because we stopped them from getting on, but because there really were none calling in. Call to action. If you would like to help improve the situation, you are welcome to pitch the show on our behalf to your favorite Christian group, to that guy in the office who won't shut up about his religion, to your religious families saying, hey, I really like this show and you should call and tell those atheists a thing or two.
That's right. We'd love to have them and chew them up and spit them out.
Please get them to teach us a lesson. We welcome it. Maybe people have not caught on so much to the Skype number unless they're already regular viewers, so pass around that Skype account, The Atheist Experience, if you want. Let them know when we're on. We have a handy link to our website or on our blog that... a handy link that lets people know when we're live and how to get in touch. So, you can help us.
That's right. Please do. Let's take the next caller. Yeah.
Chris in Tennessee. What's up?
Hey.
Hey, Chris. I can hear you.
Hey. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just want to start out saying I've been watching the show for a few months, and it's actually the reason I became an atheist from being a Buddhist.
Thanks.
Wow, wonderful.
And real quick, there was a caller last week who was talking about how God created the earth with age, or was suggesting that one of their friends thought that.
Yeah,
and one thing Matt didn't bring up that I thought was a good counter argument for that was that makes it completely indistinguishable from a God not creating the earth.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
My question I wanted to get to was my mom is a very fundamental Lutheran, and I was raised in the Lutheran Church, and I told her that I'm an atheist, and every time we talk about religion, she keeps bringing it up. I know you're going to come back to Christianity because I know, and I was wondering what you guys thought would be a good way to respond to that.
This one seems easy. You just say, okay, Mom, I guess someday I'll be a Christian again, and there's no need to talk about it anymore until that happens.
The thing I thought of was, you just keep praying, and
Yep.
you can demonstrate that it works,
Yeah, I mean, smile and nod and move on to another topic.
Okay, I just didn't know if you guys had a
Yeah.
Well,
if that's your worst problem, you're doing pretty good, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's annoying, and sometimes snappy comebacks with your mom are not the best thing, but
right.
Yeah, she gets a little hot-tempered when I try to do that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, a lot of times people get the idea from movies that there's always going to be closure on some problem, that everything's going to be wrapped up neatly right before the credits. And in real life, there is no closure, and people who are annoying you now will probably annoy you for years and years. But, accept that and be zen about it, which you have experience with.
Right. Or you can tell her that
I still do the Zen meditation and stuff. I just don't believe in any of the supernatural aspects of Buddhism because I don't have a reason to believe it.
Take the best stuff. I was going to offer you another suggestion, which was to say to her that you think she's going to become an atheist someday, and
there you go.
That's the best.
Ignore me, you kids.
And then she can try that on for size.
Okay.
One last thing is I wanted to ask, how do you guys deal with residual fears of going to hell? Because sometimes whenever I think about the afterlife and what's going to happen, or if anything happens after I die, I get this nagging fear in the back of my mind from being indoctrinated that, I might go to hell.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think either one of us have any first-hand experience with that.
Yeah, no. I mean, I always like to say that you should read about other religions and their conditions for going to hell, and just remind yourself that even if you were a perfect Christian and it turned out that, Mormonism was correct, then you'd still fail to get your own planet. So, you can't be every religion.
Yeah. I think
it doesn't make sense, but it's a nagging feeling in the back of my head.
Sure, and it's probably a low-level primal thing that's just completely irrational. I'm guessing, and maybe you can think about how much suffering you had before you were born, which is kind of the classic way of dealing with these sorts of things. And if that was nothing, then that's pretty much what you have to look forward to.
Were you worried about hell when you were a Buddhist?
No, but when I was a Buddhist, I thought I was going to come back as like a tree or something. So.
Oh, for reals? Okay.
Yeah, no, I legitimately used to believe in reincarnation, and I wanted to become a tree because then I could sit around and do nothing all day. But
yeah, I was wondering how they got their hooks into you.
Right. I don't know the answer. Anyway, we're wrapping up the show pretty soon, so thanks for your call.
Yeah, thank you for calling.
See ya. David in Nottingham is our last caller.
Last but not least.
And we're going to take David as soon as we can get a hold of him. And in the meantime, do you have any parting thoughts or anything?
Parting thoughts? No, it's nice to be in this new studio and have our own,
Oh, yeah, I just want to remind people that we are going to the north location of Threadgills after the show. In case you didn't tune in early, I'm sorry to the people who will be misled into going to El Arroyo or Chico's or something like that. But El Arroyo is, Threadgills.
Yes.
Threadgills. We are going to Threadgills. Don't go anywhere else. It is on North Lamar. It is not the Riverside location. Threadgills on North Lamar. See you there shortly.
Yeah.
And our last caller from the UK. Are you there, David?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, David. I can hear you.
Very good. Probably a bit of a chewy question for the end of the show, but I'll try and I'll cut all the preamble and go straight to the question.
Please do.
Basically,
Yeah.
Something I've been thinking about quite a lot, that a lot of physicists and computer scientists and mathematicians are anticipating quite soon, by a lot of accounts, AI and really complex simulations of maybe even the universe, but certainly worlds or parts of civilization. If we can do this, what are our responsibilities to the potential suffering of the intelligences or virtual beings that we create? And the reason I ask this is because what we as atheists seem to dismiss the proposition of God on the basis of his proposed goodness falling short of what we would expect of such a being.
I don't know, but I have a book recommendation for you.
Yeah,
since this is mainly a question of philosophy and not one that has a definite answer, have you read a book called Cyberiad by Stanislav Lem? Cyberiad.
No, I've not.
You should check that out. Stanislav Lem was a science fiction author from the 60s, and Cyberiad is about a couple of robots who are intelligent, and they travel around the universe helping other inhabitants of the universe. And it's a lot of silly short stories, and it's a lot of good fun, but they touch on a lot of really complex philosophical issues while telling a lot of jokes at the same time. So there is stuff about like dealing with a tiny universe in a box and how we should behave towards those people, and these robots creating other artificial intelligence and arguing about how they ought to treat that. So once again, that book is Cyberiad by Stanislav Lem. Check it out.
Got you. Cool.
And I'm not sure I have more to add here. There's this question of the Turing test and how whether we can deal with or treat other intelligences and recognize other intelligences when we get there, and it's often been my thought that even if a robot is completely intelligent, that we probably wouldn't treat it very well, just given our history of anything that's different. And I think that our moral compass, our moral maturity is still pretty primitive, and we've got a long way to go. And I hope that maybe we can solve some of those questions before we get to do any real harm.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I've watched a lot of Star Trek. I think Data is every bit as much worth treating decently as a person as any other member of the Next Generation crew. So we should be nice to robots when it's clear that they have real intelligence.
Yeah, they're going to be our overlords someday anyway.
No, they're not. They're just going to be our friends. I'm optimistic about technology.
Tit for tat, All right.
That we kind of always sort of sort out these moral issues a bit too late when people have already suffered. It just seems like it's one of those things that if we can see it coming way ahead of time, then should we not have those conversations?
There's been a lot of good writing on it. It's just that it's mostly been science fiction up till now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So good point. But maybe we should wrap it up. Thank you very much for your call.
Yep, thanks.
That's our show. Sorry, the call screeners apparently took another call, but that's our show. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Sorry, Christine.